Hello, everybody from Sustainable You. And today we are having a different conversation. We have fabulous Hannah here with us, and what we're going to cover is soil health. So, understand the attributes of what that means, the benefits of that good health, and also basic principles of developing healthy soil. So, as I said, we have with us today Hannah Nickerson, one of the ones maybe you don't know yet, but is a sustainability lead in biotech. So she knows the ins and outs of corporate sustainability. She also volunteers with Sycamore Spring Farm on the east coast of the United States in Maryland, about an hour north from Washington, D.C. And her work with the farm is basically the focus of today. So farm practices a regenerative way, right? This idea of no harm, the farming techniques that offers healthy and delicious vegetables through vegetables and fruits, and through the concept of CSA, Community Supportive Agriculture. It's a program for the customers in the area. So she's going to tell us about all of this in a minute. How we met, Hannah, is through the work in a community of work on climate. Also, you can check it out. I'll put some links in the show notes if you want to join us as well. And it's an action-oriented Slack community for people that are serious about climate work. And also put some links of how to contact Anna, all in the details of the video later. So you must be intrigued by now, huh?
Thanks, Ines. Thanks, Helen. So great to be here with you both today. So thank you for the pre-introduction, and to tell you a little bit more about myself and my background. So I grew up in West Virginia in the United States, which is a very rural state. It's known for its natural beauty. The state motto is wild and wonderful. And me and my sister definitely spent our time running around in the forest and the woods and the streams, and just had so much fun imagining, our little fantasies out in the forest. And so West Virginia is a very agricultural state as well because of that. So there's a lot of homesteading, there's a lot of farming, but it's also one of the nation's top coal producers, or at least it was for several decades. So if you don't know much about coal mining, one of the most popular ways to get the coal is to take off the top of the mountain, and it's called mountaintop removal. And that has detrimental effects on the environment, but really also the people. And growing up in West Virginia, I experienced both of those worlds. But taking care of the earth and not taking care of the earth. And it taught me that how we treat the earth matters. And if we take care of it, it can more than take care of us. So I went to college in West Virginia, and I got a degree in industrial engineering, which is essentially about process efficiency. So any process, whether it be farming or a restaurant line or manufacturing a sneaker or something, they all have these kind of similar principles around process efficiencies and reducing waste, project management, and even a little bit of human psychology in there. So after college, I started working for a large biopharmaceutical company where I've worked for the past 10 years. And I learned a lot about implementing those principles and connecting with people. But then as my career progressed, I also started learning a lot about the actual facility. And we all, whether it's a big manufacturing facility or our house, we really all live in a facility of some sort. And I learned a lot about energy and water flow through a building. And, I've always been a hippie at heart. But in fact, my first boss, he was like, you're a hippie, but in a good way. And I was like, I will not argue with that. And actually now that's how I'm going to introduce myself. So I've kind of started owning the hippie at heart part of me in my professional work, and it led me into this sustainability role. So I'm a regional sustainability lead now, and we're working on all kinds of things like reducing carbon emissions from our operations and energy efficiency and stuff like that. So I feel like my rural background and kind of growing up in West Virginia, taking it into the corporate world, but it's just who are you inside, and owning that. And I feel like that's what brought me here today. And now I get to connect with cool people like you who live across the world. We've never met, but here we are talking about soil health, and I love it.
Yeah, we have met now. Yeah, there are many ways.
Never met in person, but yeah, we have.
Yeah, many ways to travel the world without necessarily so much
Absolutely.
footprint. Yeah, I think it's fabulous how this works towards sustainability, or one would argue regenerative, right? We need to go beyond mission zero, can connect us all together. So yeah, thank you for spending this time with us and sharing with the rest of us health of the soil. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, so tell us, which climate zone are you on, so we can put it in perspective?
Such a pertinent question. I am in climate zone 7B. So as you said, I'm on the east coast of the US, about a few hours from the Chesapeake Bay, kind of buffered by the mountains on the western side. So we've got a beautiful agricultural valley, and sort of getting up into the mountains a little bit.
And in terms of how does that translate through the year and the seasons, like a brief, how would that look like?
So typically nobody usually plants anything outside in the soil until after Mother's Day. So mid-May is typically when the fear of frost has passed. Although this year, it's February and the daffodils are already blooming. So many things are starting to come up. Trees are blossoming. It's definitely feels like an earlier year this year, but typically mid-May is when outdoor plants will go in the soil. And then we harvest well through October, especially these past few years have been very warm into October. And so getting some of those late season greens out of the ground, and then just pumpkins and gourds and some of those winter staples have been going through October for us. And then typically, the winter for us, we've been having more mild winters lately, but we typically do get roughly about a foot of snow every year in various different events, and hovers around freezing for a couple of days. But yeah, we get all 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's good. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because even for us, last year, the end of last year, and we're based in the UK, we had, I think, tomatoes going into November in our greenhouse, and they started to flower late October, I think, was it? Yeah, so it was mad. So the seasons are definitely sort of changing and lengthening, as far as we can see here as well. So, good. Well, let's talk a little bit more then. As permaculture sort of learners and practitioners, what are talk to us a bit more about soil health.
Sure. The picture behind me is a picture of our garden at the farm where I volunteer. So Sycamore Spring Farm, as Ines mentioned, it's a local community supported agriculture program, veggie boxes. And one of the things that drew me to the farm, Farmer Carol has owned the property for over 30 years, but she, you start talking to her and she immediately says, we're better than organic and regenerative agriculture. And over the years, I've started to understand what that really means, because you hear the words, but unless you're really digging in the dirt, you may not quite understand. And at the end of the day, it's amazing how much about just the success of a farm and even its finances comes down to healthy soil. So, healthy soil is important not only because it helps mitigate climate crisis and capture carbon and things like that, but it just produces, the most healthy and best tasting vegetables. And I think we all want more of that in our lives. So the healthier your soil is, the healthier your food will be. And when we talk about healthy soil, it's about that balance of nutrients in the soil and the microbes. So, seeing worms or little bugs in there, that's actually a good thing. That's what you want to see. They're not gross. They're the things giving us our health, literally. It's all this kind of concept of symbiosis. How can we as humans cultivate natural systems to better serve us? And I think that's one of the principles at the farm relating to the soil that we take very seriously. And so healthy soil is also about resiliency, as I said. There's going to be more extreme weather events, and having a healthy garden will help us be more resilient to those events and keep ourselves fed and keep our natural world around us, at least in the immediate space, more resilient and able to recover from events like those.
So an abundant and resilient system, what's not to like?
That's exactly it.
So from your perspective, what sort of confusions or conflicts you see in the industry with this?
Well, as I've mentioned, I also work in corporate sustainability as well as volunteering on the farm. And, I think sustainability as a buzzword for the average person, a lot of people think environment, which is good. It can mean a lot of other things, but focusing just on the environment, especially in the corporate world, you will hear companies talk about energy reduction. Or water use. And they'll say, we're going to save 10% of our energy. That's really only half the story. Conservation and responsible use and efficiency is definitely part of sustainability. But we're talking about, breaking the word down, sustainability. Right now, that balance of what we are able to maintain for future generations is out of whack. So reducing our use will kind of extend what we're able to sustain for a little bit of time. But I think one of the largest misconceptions, and what we as storytellers and farmers connected to the earth, what we can do is weave the stories of not just reduction, but of regeneration. And I think regeneration sometimes means taking a step back in order to take 2 steps forward. There's so much ancient agricultural knowledge out there that I think we can tap into to make our systems more resilient and more healthy and just create a better world for everybody. So I think sustainability isn't just about reduction, it's about regeneration.
It's not, yeah, exactly. It's not more. I think it's so easy just to kind of connect back to let's be more sustainable, we're organic, or let's be more this, or we're this, that, and the other. And you're absolutely right. I love that you've broken the word into 2 parts because, to bring that real meaning. Okay, so earlier on, you sort of mentioned about, growing your own vegetables, and actually we all want vegetables that taste good and actually are good for us as well, got the right nutritions and things in them. And all of our health, that sort of comes from the food we eat. So going back to our soil and the foods that come from it, what does good soil look like is what I'm trying to ask.
That is such a great question. I actually had to do some reading on this one. Would consider myself a beginner, maybe not quite novice, but a beginner farmer. So I had to go back to the books a little bit so that I could be sure to tell everybody the right things. And I think I summed it up into a couple of key points. So when we talk about good soil, it comes down to 3 properties that you're thinking about. It's your physical structure of your soil, the biological composition of the soil, as well as the chemical makeup of the soil. So those are kind of the 3 categories. When we talk about physical structure, soil comes in many different forms. If you think about sand, that's technically considered a soil, or clay, very compact, almost slippery when wet clay, right? And then we also have silt. So those are the 3 triangles, or 3 points of the triangle, say clay, sand, and silt. The best soil is somewhere right in the middle there. So we'll talk about how you can get to healthy soil later, but that's what you want is the mix there. When we talk about the biological composition of the soil, these are your things like organic matter, compost, animal droppings, could be anything like that. And then the resulting microorganisms. So if you dig up a shovel full of soil and you see a bunch of worms in there, or those grubs, That's a good sign. And then lastly is the chemical. So the pH of your soil, what plants will grow best in, slightly acidic or neutral soil, things like that. The nutrients of the soil. So what vitamins are actually in there. And then, of course, anything like contaminants or pollutants that maybe from before or since have entered your soil, that would fall under the chemical category.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about the benefits of good soil then.
So, yeah, as we said, sustainability. Good soil sustains plant and animal life. Good soil also has a proper structure so that it's not too dense or that it doesn't blow away in the wind, right? We want soil to be able to maintain a nice nice moisture when it's wet, but also not wash away. Good soil can help filter pollutants. So especially in my region, one project that I've been in awe of watching is they're doing a lot of tree plantings. So this isn't exactly soil health, but by planting trees next to streams, the trees actually help stabilize the soil to prevent erosion. And as wastewater and rainwater travel towards the streams, the trees and the soil help filter out pollutants that may be coming into the stream and then thus affecting water quality. So good soil will help filter pollutants. And then also, I think this is probably one of the most controversial pieces about regenerative agriculture, but good soil can actually act, and it's very hard to get here, but it is possible. It can act as a natural buffer against weeds. So if done well, you can actually mitigate weeds or use weeds properly to improve your soil health. Do you all use any of those practices on your farm, or where are you on your soil health journey?
No, we inherit pretty clay soil, but that's something you can work with. I think you can work with. One of the components that you mentioned is organic matter, and that's relatively easy to continuously feed to your soil. Sometimes we feel that we have to control so many things, and in fact, when you let nature do its thing, it can be very abundant. Some of the things you were mentioning, how you place the trees, and then they themselves gonna create the leaves that's gonna fit the ground. And it's just observing a little bit the patterns and trying to mimic the same into where you're growing your veg. One of the things that we will do is a continuously fed of a top layer of the beds, so you're continuously feeding some extra nutrients, and then that layer also becomes a little shade section so that the weeds doesn't come in with opportunistic plants that are trying to feed your soil as well. But hey, and so that will also help with reducing evaporation. Some of those sort of simpler techniques, I think everybody can put in place.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Good luck.
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually in sort of walking around the area in trying to understand the little bits. I remember sort of first coming here and people saying, "Oh wow, you've got really great soil," and not really understanding what that meant, or this other area isn't so great. And as you start to understand the impact that footfall has on your land as well, if you keep walking over the same bit over and over again, it's going to compact potentially something that was a really good area to be able to plant. So it's being able to understand the different layers of your behaviours as a human being working in the garden, but also, the behaviours of the soil as well. That's sort of really rung home to me in the past sort of year or so. So, yeah.
That is so true.
Cool. Right. So, coming back to this weed topic then, I'm sure lots of people would love to know more about how good soil can actually help us have less weeds, or as Ines puts, opportunistic plants.
Weeds. What is a weed? It's a plant living in the wrong place. It could also potentially be maybe an invasive species, something like that. But I think to a farmer, well, aside from an invasive species, it means a plant that's competing for the nutrients and sunlight and water, as you mentioned, Helen, in the garden. So that being said, we can actually use some weeds to our advantage to prevent more weeds. There's this whole concept of crop rotation and cover cropping. And so cover cropping is essentially planting what might be by some be considered a weed, like red clover or certain grains, that in the off season protect the soil and actually replenish some nutrients back in. And so over years of doing this and adding organic matter, you're actually, creating a buffer where you're removing the weeds so they're not seeding themselves, and you're getting the plants that you want to grow there, more space and more opportunity to grow. So it's kind of the trifecta, I think, maybe every farmer's dream, but maybe not also, because so many times, like in commercial agriculture or large scale farms, instead of practicing these more natural, systems, you're spraying, right? You're spraying with herbicides, you're spraying with pesticides, you're actually paying to make your farm less healthy. There's a great YouTube video I've watched called Soil Carbon Cowboys. And it's all about these couple of farmers going on this journey of reducing their pesticide and herbicide use by practicing regenerative agriculture and crop rotation. And some of the transformation is just stunning. And you can see the difference between a field that has been tilled and sprayed and nothing's living and it's eroding away versus the healthy soil next door. And I think it just goes to show that these practices have absolutely a viable place in today's economy. What does a weed even mean? Let's just start there. Really think about that.
Yeah, certainly. We even have a playlist about weeds, particularly because some of them you can eat. Is in fact your own vegetables, and especially in the Hungry Gap, you can do much with them. You also can take advantage of some of the nutrients that they bring to you. For example, nettles. We have a recipe, and we'll do a video one day to create a fertilizer from nettles that doesn't smell, and is relatively easy to do. They can cover shade for you. If you look at, sometimes just looking at the plant, looking at the roots, if the roots go really deep, they probably bring in nutrients up for you. So yeah, there is a lot to learn. And I think sometimes we feel we need to take control, or we want to take control. We start messing about with the micro ecosystem you already have functioning without realizing the repercussions.
100%. There's actually one thing that I wanted to show you all that I kind of forgot about until now. But, when we talk about soil health, and I was talking about the physical properties of the soil, this is a really easy way to check the composition of your soil. So I filled it about to here with just a scoop of dirt, filled the rest with water. And over time, your soil will actually separate into layers. So I don't know if you can see here, there's a top layer of clay, very thin line of dark, and then we have our silt and then our sand filtering out here. So I'm mostly silt over here with some clay mixed in, but this is a really quick, easy way to see what your soil, what you're starting with, at least from a physical standpoint.
That's a really handy tip. Thanks so much to share, because I think, like I was saying, when you come to a garden, people start talking about the type of soil you have. It's just great to do some sort of test without having to spend a lot of money in doing that. So yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, you can certainly see it. A good healthy soil, you can see it. I think you can smell it. I'm not sure if you can taste it. I haven't tried that one yet.
I think there's some old timer out there that will taste the soil and will tell you.
So if any of you watching do, please let us know. I love to have you over. So that's a quite cool technique. Any other sort of techniques or tools to support not just building, but also caring and nurturing that soil health?
Yeah, so aside from knowing what your physical properties are, as we talked about, biological, that's kind of, it's not the easiest, but if you dig up and you see a worm, okay, that's a pretty good indicator that there's good biologic activity in your soil. And then on the chemical side, that's probably the more cost and or time intensive. My dad recently at his farm in West Virginia had his soil tested, and there's local agencies that will do the soil testing for you, sometimes for free, and they'll check the pH and the nutrients of your soil. And he actually got feedback that he should add lime to his soil. And so that was one amendment, that he, sprinkled the lime over the pasture, which will sink in and help the nutrients of the pH balance out. So things like that are kind of the next step that you can do. And then there's just the taste test. I mean, if you've ever had a piece of celery, I remember the first time I had a piece of celery from Carol's farm, and I was just maybe not eating the soil directly, but I was shocked. It was the most delicious thing I'd ever tasted. And that's really what started me questioning, what's all she talking about this regenerative soil planning and all that. So there's a couple ways to know.
And the soil also stays together. You were mentioning avoids erosion when it's healthy. It has a structure. It holds together. It holds moisture better. So you can see it, and you can touch it in terms of how the structure is. So we get into the end, Hannah. So is any particular place you like to send the audience if they want to reach out and learn more about you and the work that you do?
Sure. So if you would like to follow me professionally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Hannah Nickerson. If you would like to follow the farm directly, I also run the Instagram account for the farm, and that would be at Sycamore Spring Farm _MD. And that stands, of course, for Maryland, because we are in Maryland. And if you are near me in the East Coast and you would like to come visit, please also reach out. We gladly accept visitors on the weekends and things like that.
So yeah, stay tuned. We're going to get another video in about 2 weeks. Just follow the handler that we have of sustainable-u. And well, thank you very much, Hannah, once again. And for you all to be watching, we're learning as we go. Sharing is caring. So also do put your comments and thoughts in the comments box. Thank you for sharing us today. Goodbye, and see you very soon.